Welcome to the Studio Success Formula Podcast, the business school for dance studio owners. And now for your host, Clint Salter.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know where you are in the world right now or what time it is when you're listening to our podcast. But hello, it is Clint Salter here from Studio Success Formula and the Dance Studio Owners Association. I want to welcome you this week to a very special interview that I know is going to really resonate with you. As I was doing this interview, I was nodding my head constantly. And when my neck is sore after an interview, I know it's been a great one. And I know that this one is really going to affect you at your core. Today's guest is Joanna Garzilli, and she's America's leading intuition coach. Now, intuition coach, it's an interesting one. I've been following Joanna now probably for about 5 or 6 years, and we recently reconnected, and I said to her, I love what you're talking about, and I need you on our show so that all of our studio owners out there can hear more about your message. Now, you're going to love this interview with Joanna if you feel overwhelmed. If as a studio owner, the pressures of doing everything in your business or never switching off, never having a day off, working maybe 70 hours a week, if that's you, you're going to love this interview. It's also for you if you ever have some self-doubt. I don't know about you, but I still have doubt when I'm going to launch a big new project or an event or a new program. There's a lot of doubt. I think to myself, are people going to want this? Are they going to love it as much as I've loved putting it together? And so I know a lot of you face the same thing when maybe you want to go from one location. Maybe you're in one location and you're going to open up a second one, or you're going to go from a community hall to your brand new, your own premise. Maybe you want to introduce a new class. Maybe you want to start, hiring a new teacher, but you're not sure if they're going to work. So doubt creeps in. We talk a lot about doubt in this. We talk a lot about being a successful leader and what does it mean to be a successful leader and how we can deal with those challenging times when we're in pain. The other thing we talk a lot about is competition. And Joanna has a really fascinating take on how we can work with our competition and the good things about competition. We talk about looking sideways. We have a little bit of a giggle when we talk about, checking on the studio up the road or down the road to see how many likes they've got on Facebook. And look, putting my hand up, we've all been there. We talk about how to really use competition to propel you forward. Lots of cool stuff in here. And obviously being an intuition coach, we talk about intuition, how to really tap into what your gut is telling you, your gut feelings, taking some time out and being able to do that and really kind of go inside yourself to see, what is it that I really want? We talk about taking time out. We speak about meditation. I mean, this interview, it gets me excited kind of reliving what we went through, and I think that you're really going to love it. Also, I just want to say a big welcome to all of the members into the Studio Success Formula that we have opened our doors to over the last 2 weeks. It's so great to have another lot of studio owners from across the globe joining us in that program. Now, if you missed out on joining us in the Studio Success Formula program, don't worry, we will have another opportunity for you to join us. But in the meantime, we've got a special offer at the moment for you to come in and experience what the Dance Studio Owners Association is all about. We're giving you 5 weeks access to the association for just $5. Now, this is where we have all our resources for growing your business. Our community of over 300 members is in there. We do live Q&A calls with me every month to answer your questions. So if you'd like to give that a go for 5 weeks, just for $5, simply go to dancestudioownersassociation.com/special. So that's dancestudioownersassociation.com/special. Hope to see you there. And that's enough from me. Here is our interview with the amazing Joanna Garzilli. Hey, Joanna, how are you today?
Doing fantastic and so excited to be here. And I can't wait to get into all the tips that I have for your amazing dance studio owners.
I am so excited. I said to you before, I've been following you for many years now. And I was like, you know what? I have to get Joanna on the show because I see what studio owners are going through every day. And I was like, this lovely lady can help us with some of the challenges that we face as studio owners. So, Joanna, for those that might not know much about you and what you do, I'd love you to kind of in a minute tell us about what you do and how you help people to live, better lives and build better businesses.
Absolutely. So my main focus is conscious business growth and using spiritual tools to make that happen. So a lot of the time, someone will think, well, how can a guided meditation or how can specific questions go and help to make me more productive or generate more income? But there is that, I've just seen it over and over, that there is this correlation from when you work from the inside, that then things start to shift on the outside. And so I do that through intuition coaching. So it's really your intuition is working, being able to connect people to that inner part of themselves, the wise part of themselves, so that you stop second guessing and really get into action with things.
Awesome. And we're going to jump into that today. I love what you said about kind of, going on the inside. One of my favorite sayings is, if you don't work, nothing does. So,
yes.
I think focusing on you is one of the best things you can do for business growth. But people think they have to be busy all the time. They have to be kind of doing things, taking action, shuffling papers to actually get anywhere. But sometimes, would you agree that we need to actually stop?
100%, Clint. I mean, it is that, especially when one starts to feel frantic, if there is a feeling of overwhelm kicking in terms of, I've got to have more people in the class, I've got to change the schedule, or, I was really excited about doing this launch and suddenly things aren't going the way that I thought they were going to go, and that frenetic energy starts to come up, it is absolutely vital to stop it and really connect inwards, because then when you move to that inner place, your soul will speak to you and your intuition will give you the guidance of the next steps, which might be patient. Like, you've set this in motion, you've put this work together, now you just have to ride it through. And it's always at that point that when you think, oh, well, it's not working, right? Suddenly things just start to build a momentum. And I think it's very important that when we look at people around us, right? When, let's say, you think, oh, I want to have a studio like that person over there, and why aren't I there yet? It's realizing that it was a journey for them to get there, right? To get to that place. And also the other thing is that, let's say one's work maybe as a choreographer or professional dancer, and being out on that circuit, being on the road with things, and then suddenly, you're shifting to doing it as a business. It is as you well understand, it is a very, very different dynamic, right? It's just everything is different. And sort of the way that we're, as sort of being more creative as an artist, shifting into that path of entrepreneurship is still creative and artistic, but it's in a very, very different way. So it's sort of like you have to rewire yourself. And so having faith and strengthening that muscle of trust is an absolute necessity to ride it through those highs and lows that one experiences as you're building your business.
I love that. I mean, you've just spoken to something that is so relevant for our studio owners, because whether they're going through a recital or a concert, or, they're putting on, another type of production, or maybe a teacher has just left them, or two teachers have left them, so they've got double the work to do, or they've lost a whole lot of students, whatever it is. I mean, a lot of the time our studio owners are wearing multiple hats in their business, and often they say to me, Clint, I just feel so overwhelmed, and that I'm spinning my wheels, and that I can't get enough done, and there's not enough hours in the day. So I guess, Joanna, what are some of the things you said, to kind of, be still, go inwards, kind of really tap into I guess, what that voice inside your head is saying, and tap into your intuition as much as possible. What are some other exercises, I guess, that we can do during that period to give us some clarity, maybe some relief, some guidance around what to do next?
Well, one of the things that I feel is vitally important within the dance world is that I mean, it is so competitive. I mean, my husband laughs when I dance. It's funny, but when I was living in Los Angeles, and I've been there for over 10 years, and so I went and I find dance is, anyone that is focused on dance for a start is super intuitive. I find like the two go hand in hand, and so I went and did quite a few dance classes at the top LA dance studios at Millennium and at The Edge. And so what I noticed in those environments was just this energy of competition, just like this thing that not on the surface, outwardly, everything like is very friendly and sort of collaborative, and it's creative and it's dynamic, but I felt this energy of underlying stress, really strong stress that was there for people. And so I think that this comes back to the simplicity of meditation. And so if we there's nothing like sort of experiencing it. It's just to take a moment now and just say, okay, I'm just going to close my eyes and just take one of your hands and place it on your heart. And start to, as you have your hand on your heart, come back to and ask yourself the question, why did I start this studio? What was that spark that I decided to commit to doing this as a business? And so that answer might come as almost like a vision within one's mind's eye, sort of like maybe a vision of a production, or you might hear a song inside your head. Anyone that's in the world of dance, right, it's going to come through music. A lot of the time I find spirit will communicate through music, and sort of you'll hear a certain song and it'll just stand out to you. That's a message coming from spirit. It's coming through, your intuition is prompting you, saying, really listen to that. So as you start to feel that message, right, you hear it, you sense it, or you just have this feeling inside, right, and you connect back into that spark and you ground that energy, that then overrides the stress, right? There's always going to be pressure in this industry. Like, there's no way to say, oh, okay, I'm just going to be calm in it. Show business does not work that way. It never will. It's just not the energy. I remember being at, it was a couple of years ago, they had a special Q&A right before the Golden Globes, and Annette Bening was there. And I remember saying to her, how do you go and balance like find balance in what you're doing in, when you've got all this pressure and you're doing a movie and all this stuff's going on? And she just said, there is no balance. And that sort of rattled me at the time. What do you mean there is no balance? And she just said, yeah, when something comes along, she's like, I just embrace it. I go full on into it. I eat it, I sleep it, I breathe it. And then when I have, whatever time or downtime in between, I just sort of recharge in that. And so I guess, when you're a studio owner, when do you ever really have the downtime? And so that comes back to another very important tool, which is just saying, okay, I'm going to create that environment for myself that is very nurturing. You have to have a nurturing environment, because if you don't create that for yourself, how can you then go and build this successful studio? Not just, and here's another really important distinction, Clint, is that maybe, sometimes like when you see a studio, maybe it's really successful, and then bang, it's suddenly just gone overnight, right? Because there's some other problems there that haven't been addressed. And so I think it's like really looking at the environment of where being able to have this special environment that is unique to you, that goes back to the message in your heart, but that everything is really reflected that environment. So I would encourage, as a studio owner, I would say the next time that you go into your studio, look at the studio and go, where do I see the subtle energies of stress within the environment? Is it coming through in something that one of the staff members, one of the students? Is it just something that it could be even that maybe one of the room isn't set up quite right, or the sound system needs replacing, like just like these little things of just looking at what is it. And maybe you can't fix all of those things right away where you want it all perfect, because one has to work from where one's at. But you set the intention and you say, I'm going to focus on changing that one thing first. So let's say one puts on an event or does something, and X amount of income that's generated from that, it goes towards getting that new piece of equipment, or doing that new special thing, or putting that towards one's self-care, and taking the actions from there. Because a lot of the time the success is not, like I said, it's not overnight. It is progressive. It happens little by little. I know you know that.
It sure does, step by step, and that's part of anyone's journey, whether you're a studio owner, or maybe we've got some choreographers or dance teachers or dancers listening to this as well. I love how you've spoken about competition. You know the industry. You know that our studio owners are looking over at the studio that's up the road and down the road from them, kind of looking at what they've got and what they've done and saying, oh, I wish I had that class. Or sometimes it's they've taken my idea. I mean, how do you kind of talk to someone who is consistently kind of looking sideways at what everyone else is doing? I mean, how can they really tap into focusing? And I always say to them, you have an amazing studio with beautiful students, amazing teachers. You want to serve them to the best of your ability. And that's not by looking at what everyone else is doing. How can you kind of stay on track and stay on purpose when you continually kind of looking at everyone else? I mean, what advice do you have there for the people that go, oh my God, that's me, I'm continually looking sideways?
This competition is a very powerful topic, and competition can help you excel and go to new heights, or it can break you and basically shatter your dream. And so the way I look at competition, and I think that the best way to look at competition is when you catch yourself. If one catches oneself going into that space of, like you said, where someone's going, oh my gosh, how am I going to get there? Or they're doing that, and there is there's a subtle energy of jealousy or resentment or insecurity comes up. That, for a start, the reminder is you don't know exactly what that other studio is going through. And really, it's none of your business what they're doing. Like, you have to, I think, if anything, when you look at competitors around you, really, instead to have the focus of gratitude, thank God they are doing what they're doing, because it helps bring business it helps boost the business, right? Because if there was like only one of it, when you start to have more and more sort of competitors, that industry is a success. And so I think also it's a good idea to look at who are other studios that where you can collaborate and cross promote each other. So let's say, for example, one has a studio in Sydney, and then there's someone else in Melbourne. Like, let's say through one's putting oneself out there through social media marketing, and maybe that there's a number of people that sort of inquiries come, but they don't cover that particular type of dance, right? They don't have that certain expertise or that certain course that one could cross promote. And so, refer then to say, look, I can't help you here, but here's my part, here, go to this studio instead. So that is a great way where you can then, really find a sort of a collaboration or a synergy. Now, if someone obviously is a direct competitor and they're doing exactly what you do, I would say, on the surface, maybe not so much. But here, let me sort of give an example from my industry with what I do. Say, you could say a competitor in my industry, or that I would be a competitor of, say, Gabby Bernstein and say Marianne Williamson and Wayne Dyer and Lisa Williams and John Holland and Colette Baron Reid. And so, looking from that aspect, if I was a student, or as a student, I mean, even as a teacher, I'm always still learning, that we don't go and just say read one book or do one course. If I'm going to go and learn something on, say, studying intuition or on spirituality or experiencing miracles, I'm going to read Gabby Bernstein, and I'm going to read Wayne Dyer, and I'm going to attend one of John Holland's workshops, and Colette Baron Reid, and Lisa Williams. It's not an either or, it's a yes and. If we're really hungry and we're not sort of like the novice, the amateur who's just looking to go and do one class, but someone, really is passionate about including dance in their life because they know it helps relieve stress, it helps them feel great. It's sort of ironic, right, that the thing that's helping other people that creates what's stress for oneself, right, from the business aspect, but that you say, okay, well, I'm going to go and learn in these different areas, right? Someone's going to go and do more than one dance workshop. They're going to want to go and learn. Like I said, when I was going and doing dance, I was doing, it was because my husband dared me to try out for the Laker girls, which, oh my gosh, it's just like insane. And I ended up, he's like, you're not going to tell Clint that, but I did. I ended up getting on the Laker Girls TV show. It's like they still air it, and I'm the only person on it that can't dance. Like, it was like the across the floor was a disaster. I can't even tell you how bad it was, but I made it onto the shows. But the thing is that at the time I was doing dance. I was at my gym, Equinox, and then I went to my dance teacher and I said to him, look, I've got to get ready for this audition, and I really can't dance. It's one thing dancing on a podium in a club when I was 19, but I can't do it. And he said to me, oh, well, you got to go to Millennium, and you got to go to Edge, and you got to take jazz, and you've got to go and do a turns class. I'm like, what's a turns class? You've got to do, and you should do some ballet too. But and so what I did was I went and did multiple different classes at different studios around Los Angeles. So I think that if you just if as a studio owner, you just go, you know what, like, we're all valuable resources, and get to be part and look at it more sort of a collaboration and in it together versus, oh my gosh, they're going to that studio instead. That means that they're better. Sometimes people just want to mix it up. They need a different environment, and then they come back to you.
And look, a lot of what we talk about is getting our studio owners to identify who is their ideal student and parent, because we know in business that we can't be all things to all people, and we want people to actually say, no, that's not the studio for us, and other people to go, this is my home, this is where I belong.
And that comes back into the heart, right? That's so every time that feeling of competition comes up, there really is, there is not a competition. It's like, if we don't sort of have the competition there, think about sports, right? There is no game then. I mean, there is no dance, it's just energy. It's a movement of energy. And that's sort of that friction or that tension of energy, that there is great beauty and flow that comes out of that. So it's very important to keep coming back to, if one feels oneself focusing too much around what's my competitor doing? How many more likes did they get on Facebook?
They do that. They do that.
Oh, believe me, I mean, I've been there myself mentally. And as soon as that happens, I just go, let it go. Like, you have to let it go and come back to your message. Because the other thing is that besides the specifics of the dance and the soul resonance is that, sort of your personality as well, right? And so I think that when one comes back to the meditation and coming back to one's heart, the key to really being successful in the long term, not just financially successful, not just winning a certain award for the studio, not for having a star student that goes on to win an award or get some big show, but really that there is this, what did I want to say with that? That when it comes back into that heart space and it's so aligned and pure, that's when the joy really starts to come out. And so when you're in that heart space, everything you're doing is just coming from a place of love, right? Then there's no resistance. So if, for example, only 3 people show up to a class instead of 23 people, you know everything's okay because you're being you in that full expression. And it's just a matter of time before things build then to that next level. And, I remember, Clint, when I first started doing my intuition and my psychic development workshops, sometimes I'd have maybe two, I remember starting off in my home, and I would have 2 or 3 people. And I loved it. There was no stress there. But then when I decided to do it professionally, suddenly I would get paranoid around how many people are showing up here. And then I would focus on, so I'd have a class full of beginners, and then I'd have one person that was a professional, right? And then I'd suddenly be going, oh my gosh, are they happy? And working towards that. And people would say, well, the class was great, but it was just like a little bit too advanced for me. And then getting to the point where over the years, I just kept letting go and going, just show up and do the work, which is I want to empower people to trust their intuition. And now when I go and do a talk or something, there'll be 150, 200 people in the room instead when I do a live event. But it's been a progression over a period of 20 years to, get to that point. And part of it was, could it have happened faster? Yes, but I got in my own way, because as soon as I would get to the place of why isn't it happening faster, or maybe I'm not meant to do this, and then I would slow down, I would either go into low self-esteem, or I would just suddenly go into a depression and not take action. And then I would realize this is what I'm meant to be doing, so I can't give up. And then I'd start building my momentum again. And so one of the most important things that I feel that people need to do is that number one, they need to create a specific plan. Number two, they consistently need to work the plan. And then number three, they need to do excellent self-care to keep going.
I love that. I'm just totally soaking this up, because I think our studio owners are listening going, oh my goodness, this is what I've needed to hear for such a long time. And you know the industry and you know how it works, and it's like you're saying exactly what's going on in their head, because I've been there as a studio owner before, and I think everyone listening has been in the same place. I want to kind of talk about leadership, because you work with a lot of leaders, and I've read that one of the things that you say is one of the greatest obstacles to be a successful leader is doubt. And we talk about doubt so much in our association when people are wanting to maybe go from a community centre or a recreational centre to going into their own venue, or they're at a community hall. We had someone this morning who's at a community hall for their recital and their concert, and they want to go to a theatre next year. And what comes up is doubt that I won't be able to get the new students to be able to afford that. I might lose some teachers. What happens if I lose more students and I don't gain them? What happens if the rent then goes up and I can't afford it? So can you tell us a little bit about doubt and how we can really, I guess, use it or get through it to get us to a better place?
Yes. So first of all, doubt makes one hold back. And the thing is that as a studio dancer, as a dance studio owner, that you're a visionary, right? And as a visionary, you see what you're creating. As an artist, you go, this is it. This is what's happening. And then the thing is that there's this thing called time and space in between that. And so it is so important to keep following through. So one has to listen to one's intuition. Again, this goes back to you have to connect into your heart, listen to your intuition, and then follow through on the actions. Because the thing is that if you're in that energy of doubt, you are in the what if energy. And part of that what if energy is, what if it doesn't work out? What if I don't make enough money? What if everything goes under? And then the other aspect of the doubt is then that you're waiting for validation, waiting for someone who's more successful to say, you know what, bravo, well done. You really should carry on with this, right? Waiting for the permission. And there is no permission. I remember for years, I would go and see all these psychics and I'd say, am I going to write a book? And they'd say, no, we don't see you writing a book. I would come away totally in despair. Oh my gosh, well, these psychics are saying I'm not going to do a book. So then, one day I hadn't gone to a psychic for years because I was really fed up. And then I read this psychic's book and I thought, oh, this is pretty good. So I decided to do a reading, and I asked her, and it was a really good reading, but at the time I was frustrated. And I said, do you see me doing a book? She said, no. So I came off the phone exasperated, and then I went, I need to just go and write this book. Like, what am I waiting for here? What am I doing? So I wrote the book, and I self-published that first book. But what that led on to then was, a number of years later, has now led on to a really fantastic publishing deal for my next book. And so I had to trust in that journey. So I had a vision 20 years ago of being with a major publisher and having a lot of recognition globally as a spiritual teacher. And then along the way, sometimes when things didn't work out, when I would take certain actions and not see the results, I go, maybe I'm just making this all up. Maybe my intuition is wrong. But then I would do readings for clients and they'd be like, oh, that reading you did for me, like you said this at the time, I didn't believe that. And then it happened. And I was thinking, okay, well, that's really great. And I see it for others, but I don't see the evidence for myself. I would see little glimpses of things. And it's like those tiny little nuggets of gold that occur. You have to just go, okay, there is more evidence that is going to come. So, what if I had listened to those psychics where they just said, we don't see anything? And I hadn't gone and written that book. And then there was another big thing with that if I hadn't gone and been part of this particular event where at that event, I then, and through a series of synchronicities, I met my current publisher, that was a risk for me to go and be there at that event. And there was a considerable financial risk with that for me as well. And I remember at the time saying to my husband, oh my gosh, should we really do this? How are we going to see the ROI on this? But spirit, my intuition said, you need to go and do this. And then that unfolded over a number of months later. So sometimes you're gonna feel strongly to take an action. When the doubt's there, you have to just go, okay, I see you, but I'm going to keep moving. If something is like you shouldn't take an action and it is wrong, the energy will feel heavy. It will feel really icky. It will pull in your solar plexus. You'll feel like a lot of tension, almost like you're boxed in. That is an indicator from your intuition telling you not to move forward with something. But doubt is just more sort of, when you don't see results, it's just sort of more of a feeling of insecurity, more of the energy just feels maybe like being on a ship at sea that is bouncing up and down, right? And so you just haven't found your center, your grounding, your footing in that place. So those are important distinctions.
I completely agree with you. Is it sometimes with doubt? I mean, I was just listening to you talking about the book, going to the psychic and essentially getting permission in a sense, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't get permission. And then I went, okay, well, I'm psychic as well. And I'm going to give myself permission.
I agree. And I think though, for a lot of studio owners, it's having that strength to give yourself the permission to step into what you really want, into your full potential, and not relying on your husband or one of your teachers or your office staff member to give you that permission, because I see that coming up all the time for our studio owners.
Right. It always starts with the vision, and then you make the decision, and then you act upon it. So, I didn't, when I, at the time for the label of America's Intuition Coach, I just decided I'm going to be America's Intuition Coach. Once I made that decision, then I started getting a whole load of radio and TV interviews and different celebrity clients, but I just decided it. Then I said, I'm going to be one of the world's leading authorities on intuition. And I just stepped into it. But, what I will say with, for example, with building right one's platform, one's audience, to be able to have the people to come to the studio, I procrastinated for so long with social media stuff, for example, with Facebook. And I remember at the time meeting with one of the top publishers, and he said to me, you already have a decent platform, you have to keep building it. And so I'd really held back on that. But as soon as because suddenly that idea of putting myself out there as a public figure and having a public figure page, a lot of embarrassment, a lot of shame, a lot of fear about what other people would think of me, about who I was. And that, again, I had to come back to my heart and go, my message is more important than what people think about me. Because something I've learned is the more successful one becomes, people love you and think you're fantastic, and then people think that you're awful. And not being attached to either, just to keep showing up and go, I'm here, my studio has a specific purpose to help people heal, to be in their full expression, and to have the joy of dance, whatever that message is for that person, and to keep coming back to that. So with Facebook, I found that has been quite a meditation for me, and going through that process of just keep showing up, keep posting, keep doing the work, right? It's keep putting on another dance class. Maybe when you think that you can't do another workshop, just suddenly say, okay, I'm going to do another workshop now. I'm going to do something special. I'm going to do something new. I'm going to go in a different direction, and trust it. Just trust what comes.
And I think the thing is, as well, is knowing that we all face this. No one kind of wakes up every morning and is like, yes, another risk. Yes, I'm going to go for it. Every single morning. I was talking to a very, what people would deem as a very successful private client yesterday, who's been on a lot of television and has choreographed on Broadway and does some amazing work. And we were having a conversation around, fear and taking big risks and what happens if that doesn't pay off. I mean, I think no matter where you are in life, you're always going to, have these feelings around going to the next level. I always say growth never sits in comfort. And so yes. I think we need to really embrace that. So I'm so on the same page with you, and I'm loving it. So being America's leading intuition coach, I love to talk to you about, gut feeling. It's something that I've learned from an early age, I think, to harness. And you said that lots of dancers and creatives are very intuitive, and I'm totally with you on that. So how can we use our intuition when it maybe comes to things like hiring staff, dealing with conflict, and making those big decisions that we need to make in our studio? How do we really harness it? And we've talked a little bit about meditation and taking some time out and being silent, but what else can we do to really tap into that?
Well, sort of like when one goes and you're getting ready for doing, let's say, a jazz class, one doesn't go straight into doing the routine, right? I mean, you always start off with a warm-up. And once you've done the warm-up, then you're going to move through in pieces through the choreography. I may not be able to dance, but I did learn some things.
It sounds like you know a lot about dance, so you're doing well.
Well, I love it. I just I love anything to do with dance. So so it's the same thing with intuition, and so your gut feeling, your intuition, your gut, it's a muscle that has to be worked, and it has to be worked daily. And so the thing is that sort of like when you see someone go straight into, you see an amazing performance, there's all that rehearsal that leads up to it. There's a lot of practice that occurs. And it's exactly the same thing with one's intuition, is through doing meditation, through asking oneself one's questions, by focusing on being present, on really connecting into one's heart. I'm saying the same things over and over because it, like, literally, if one can get it inside one's head that is what one needs to do. And so there's a different approach, different exercises for opening the heart. Sometimes the heart is opened and it can be too much. There can be too much sensitivity there. So the too much sensitivity leads to an overwhelm, which then shuts down your intuition. And so sometimes one needs to back off a little bit. Sometimes one needs to be able to process things from the past to be able to open to the vision that your intuition is guiding you to in the future. And so this is where it's not do one meditation or just focus on the idea of intuition once a week. I recommend daily, before going to sleep, before waking, as you get up in the morning, really taking that time to connect with the intuitive part of yourself. So what does that mean, right? Connecting to your gut feeling. Like, how does one do that in a tangible way? Well, that literally is being able to feel the entirety of your feelings, right? And to get really honest with yourself and say, what do I really feel here? What have I been holding back on saying or doing? What are the full extent of my emotions? Where have I been putting my focus and energy outside of myself that I need to bring it back to myself? And as I bring it back to myself, what am I learning about myself right now? What are some of the characteristics that I see? Maybe a little bit of impatience, maybe a little bit of ego, maybe a little bit of vulnerability, right? And being able to then to speak to those parts of the self and say, okay, how can my vulnerability be a blessing? How can my ego help me? Where has my ego held me back? And as one starts to do that, it clears your internal channel. It's almost like that inner flute of energy where suddenly, first of all, it's almost like, think of it like you clear a pipe and then you can build that foundation and then you can strengthen that internal muscle. Think of it almost like doing Pilates, right? Or working those core exercises. Just think of that analogy for what one is doing with the muscle of intuition.
I love that. That's so helpful and something that our studio owners can really practice. I mean, what I love is that we talk a lot about mindfulness, which is a bit of a catchphrase now, but our studio owners in the association have read The Miracle Morning, and they're downloading apps like Calm and Headspace to really understand how meditation works and to give them that, just even if it's 10 minutes a day of some time for themselves. So what you're saying really complements what we practice and teach as well. I want to be able to help our studio owners with their students now. And as you know, rejection is a huge part of being a dancer, and lots of our studio owners are preparing their amazing students to go off and hopefully have careers in the often challenging entertainment industry. What are some lessons that they could potentially pass down to their students on dealing with rejection?
Well, the first thing that I feel is most important is one has to process the feelings of rejection. There was something great that I learned from my acting coach, Howard Fine. And actually, Howard, he's out in Australia. He has a studio out in Australia, in Melbourne as well. And you would get on amazingly. And I remember in one of the classes, he would say that, for example, one goes to a restaurant and has a meal, and it goes something like this: that was the most amazing ahi, and just the sauce on the side tasted just was delicious, and this was the best meal that I ever had. It was amazing. And then the other end of the spectrum is the conversation might go like this: how are you doing? Oh, my sister just got killed in a car crash. I'm fine. So this thing of where we minimize the important things, the big things, where there's a lot of feeling there, and then we're flamboyant and full of expression and energy and emotion with things that really, you're probably not going to remember what you ate on the 23rd of January this year, right? So this thing is that really being able to get the emotions in check, so that if you go through some type of rejection, do not minimize the rejection. Oh, it's not a big deal. Yeah, it was just for the Royal Ballet. It's not a big deal. I'm fine. It's okay. Don't minimize it. You need to have someone that you can go to, that you can process that with. When there is a loss there has to be that outlet for that. And then what you do as you look at it, rather than wallow in it, right? I'm not saying like go into the pain of the rejection, because like if you do that, then that keeps you stuck. You have to then look up, why did I feel rejected there? And here's one of the things with it. You want to look at, why were you rejected? Perhaps it's that you went up for the audition or the certain thing, or didn't get the students or didn't get the gig because you weren't ready, right? That's another part of it, that when Edmund Hillary, right, when he climbed Mount Everest, he didn't succeed the first time, right? But then after his failure, he went back and he did it again. So that when he did it at first, he wasn't ready. So sometimes facing the idea of rejection is that if you're not ready, that doesn't mean you won't ever be ready. You've got to build up towards it to build that success. Before I signed with one of the top agents that I have now in New York, I was rejected by other agents. Before I got my publishing deal, there were times when I wouldn't even be able to get in the door of a publisher. And so the other part of the rejection is, if there was a rejection there, perhaps it wasn't a right fit. That you weren't meant to get that particular show, to work with that particular client, to have that investment come in, to get that teacher to come and be at your studio. Because Spirit has a bigger plan, that there's something else coming in. And this goes back to that part of doubt and receiving the evidence and having to trust in that. So process the feelings of rejection. Look at, why were you rejected? Did you do the best you could? If you could and you were rejected, maybe it wasn't a right fit, or then that person couldn't see it. They didn't see your value. So then, it's better that you're not with them anyway. Or that other part, that you're just not ready. And then you have to look at, okay, what more preparation do I need to do? Do I need to add another 3 hours of practice? Do I need to change my plan? Do I need to adapt it? That is I would say that if one does those things that I just shared, wow, sky's the limit.
Yeah, what I love there is, essentially feel and express the pain, because in a world, and I've done this as well, in a world where we've got inspirational quotes popping up every day on Facebook, which I put up as well, and where it's all, be happy, I think we really need to be able to, not just kind of Band-Aid everything, not just like, I'm okay. Like you said, I'm fine. Yeah, I'll be fine. When inside you're really not. And I think it's healthy to get it out, have a bit of a cry if you need to, and fully express what's going on for you.
And do that with trusted people. If, for example, one's going through that, I'm not going to go and talk. If I'm going through stuff, I'm not going to talk to a complete stranger. As I'm going through something, I'm not going to go and put it all on Facebook. It's like I have to process it, figure it out, do it with people that are really, really close to me. So that means having a support team around you. You have to have a support team. And it doesn't have to be an entourage like J-Lo or Kanye West has. It can, just figure out who are your people, your one or two people. And so that could either be professionals, and if it's not professionals, find someone that you could be a support for each other and hold the space for each other, so that when something does happen and you can process it, then you can move on from it so much faster, and you can get back in the saddle faster and just be able to keep moving forward, and that accelerates the success.
Completely agree. I have what I call, and I've talked about it before on this show, my wisdom circle, and it's just got a couple of people in it, and and each of them, there's a purpose for each of us to be in each other's lives, and that and they're the people I go to for support around different things, because I think we've all got people in our lives, and it's funny with studio owners, they might have a tough day at the studio and they've had an issue with a parent or something, and they go to their, their partner, their husband potentially, and their husband's like, just get over it. I think it's also knowing the people that you can go to for different things, because I've got friends that are great around business challenges, but not so great around maybe relationship challenges. And yes. So it's knowing the right people to go to, because I see so often our studio owners going to their husbands or the same person for something that they know they're not going to get.
Absolutely. And so it's a combination of that, and then connecting back into one's intuition and opening up that channel of spiritual connection, where that's where the divine inspiration comes from. That's where the next steps of guidance come from. because sometimes no person can help you with that.
Yeah, completely. Look, Joanna, I could probably talk to you for hours, but I want to wrap up, and I want to ask you, what last piece of advice would you love to leave our passionate studio owners with to really help them take their business and their life to the next level?
So your desire comes from your spiritual essence. And so where there's that desire to take the business, right, the studios to the next level, to have those star students, to have those awards, to have that success, to put on these amazing shows, that the part of oneself that says, well, how's that going to happen? Or maybe the dream's too big, it's too lofty, that it comes from your spiritual essence. So it's not some type of whim or fancy that's there, especially if it's a repetitive desire that's coming from within you. So you have to just keep coming back to, I have this vision for a reason. It is coming from the spiritual aspect of myself. And so I will keep nurturing and taking care of my spiritual self so that then I can show up and be fully present and successful in the business. And if one does that consistently, then the success comes, right? One day you just look, it's sort of like the ugly duckling, right? You look in the mirror and one day go, oh my gosh, I turned into a swan. How did that happen? It really is. So it's knowing already, I guess maybe Spirit gave me the swan thing, Swan Lake, right? That just going, okay, I am that swan now. And how can I express that? How can I be that? How can I show that? Live that by example.
Powerful. I love it. Great way to finish off our inspiring and informative, and I think also for so many people, transformative conversation. Joanna, where can our studio owners go for more information from you? Because I'm sure they're going to be like, oh my God, I need to know more. I need more of Joanna.
Bless you. So I would say the best way to connect with me would be via Facebook or Instagram. And I'm on Twitter as well, but I'm more on Facebook and Instagram. And that's my name, Joanna Garzilli. And then if anyone, so we were talking about the meditation, and I can give you the link for this, Clint. If anyone wants, it's called Awaken Your I Am Energy. And it's a really fantastic 10-minute meditation that just puts you straight into that spiritual essence. And it has this beautiful prayer sheet with it as well. I'm happy to go and give that as a gift as well for your studio owners.
That would be amazing, and for me as well. I'm definitely going to use that.
Yes.
So we'll definitely put the link on the show notes for our interview with Joanna. Thank you so much for your time today and just for sharing all of that information. And I think everything that you said today, our studio owners are going to be nodding their head, going, yes, this makes sense. Yes. And that's what we love. I love wrapping up an interview where I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited for them because I know they're just going to love it.
Well, that's because you're so aligned.
Yes, I definitely am. And, very,
yes, you are.
Very,
awesome.
Very happy to be doing what I get to do every day with this great group of people. So thank you so much again for your time. And guys, go and check out Joanna and all of the awesomeness that she is doing in the world. I know it's not only going to help you in your business, but you just be a better, a stronger person. So thanks again, Joanna.
Thanks, Clint.
Are you enjoying the Studio Success Formula podcast? Then we'd love for you to share the love. We want to help more dance studio owners become go-to studios, so we'd greatly appreciate you writing us a review on iTunes. For taking the time out to do so, every month, Clint will be selecting one lucky dance studio owner to receive a Power Business Coaching session. Simply visit the iTunes store today, search for Studio Success Formula, click on ratings and reviews, and then write your review. Thanks in advance. Take care, and we'll see you next time.